Mind over matter, overcompensating, overstatements, crookedness relating, the soul's churn in return, mental overstimulation, one word, riveting, it terrors my pilot. Streams that are promised to make seeking less. Greetings everyone, greetings, hope you're doing well. Once again, you all through to the Mad Poet Podcast. I am your host, Alex Murder. Hope everyone's doing well, positive. Welcome back to the Mad Poet Podcast. Just give me 1 second. We are now entering into autumn season. I, for one, shall miss the summer, but definitely for sure will not be looking to go backwards. So on with it. Let's get on with it. Let's embrace it as we do. Thus, we keep it moving. A few things to break down today. Just thoughts, a few words, expression, if you will, on certain things I'll be thinking about. But first, let's start with the quote. Let's start with what I have to share today. Yes. So, getting on with things. This is the quote I have for this episode, and it says, "Convoluted lately, like the statements come with the high decibels, overstated, churning in atonement like my eyes raining tea, hanging loud in the skies like constantly, looking like where is he? Lucky no mirror in sight, for I'm prone to get me, yet got me running from daunting like they were preying on me. They're praying for me, thus prying eyes like HD, TV looking like Smith in the frame. Now look at me. Now look at me. Now look at me." But yes, just something I cooked up, and a quote from a bigger piece, put the rest of it on ice, and now we're skating on something. But it's neither here nor there. As always, questions, right? Questions. But I suppose I could give a bit of context on this one. I could give context. That they have this saying that discovery is just the beginning. In any situation, any endeavor, if you will. I think this resonated with me. In fact, it was the inspiration when creating this piece, where this quote was sourced from. Where am I going with this? If you take it serious, you feel responsible, don't you? And when I say serious or you take it, I'm talking about whatever whatever you're embarking on, whatever your endeavor situation is, whatever you commit to, whether it's family, life, etc., whatever it is, that's where I'm taking it. So in essence, if you take it serious, you feel responsible. If you feel responsible, perhaps you could picture the gods of old, for example. And when I say gods of old, I mean, you could even go medieval times. Think about back in the days of the age of mythical, like Robin Hood, or you will see the Excalibur. In fact, they're still making movies like that now. The Round Table, all that type of things. And when men or people stood for something, or when standing for something actually meant something. I suppose this is where I'm going with this. The way they were always ready and willing to die on their sword, simply because they believed it to be right. And I suppose this is where I'm coming from with this. This is where I'm coming from with this. But to carry on, a figure of speech, but I think a figure of speech, but I think the choice of words speak to the intensity and conviction behind your actions. I think there's something to be said for the conviction. Just try to get my light right. Yes, which leads me to the question: how accountable? And this is going to be somewhat of a spanning the work type of questions, but bear with me, I'll explain it. How comfortable are you being boring? And not necessarily as a person, I'm speaking about bored with life or your endeavor or the process that you... Okay, what do I mean? Let me tell you more. Imagine getting up every day to do the same thing every day over and over again. Not because you're being paid. No. Not because someone told you to. This is a voluntary type of situation. You're volunteering to be this way, How long would you be willing to do this? Or are you the type to scratch your eyes out because, oh man, I'm going crazy, I do myself, I sense like, I feel like, I think I'm giving myself a disjustice. Because essentially what I'm asking you is, are you disciplined? If you break down what I've just spoken about, this is pretty much what discipline is. You're doing the same thing over and over again, but you're doing it like you love it. And I think it was Mike Tyson was the person that, broke down the analogy of this one of the best way where it just resonates with everybody. But yes, in essence, that's pretty much what it is. You're doing something, and sometimes, more times than not, most times, I would argue, it's something you hate, or the process of it, you might begin by hating it or not liking it. But discipline dictates that you do it like you love it, which is his quote, or his version of it. Doing something you don't like or you hate, but you do it like you love it. And I think there's something about that that's just, you can't knock. It just defeats it stands the test of time, I would argue. It's man, it's out there for me personally, just thinking about it. Because, and it just, you can take that and you can pour it in any arena in terms of commitment, personal endeavors, whatever it is. And it just, it always seems to stand the test of time. But to go further, this reminds me of another saying. And it goes something similar to, I'm somewhat paraphrasing, you can only what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to, it's something along the line of, I guess what I'm saying is paraphrasing, it's just the commitment. There's a certain commitment that comes with doing something, in a sense where you're so strong in your belief that, it going back to where I started, you're willing to die, you're ready to die, you're willing to die on your sword. And not necessarily back exactly to that, but just the idea of it, where you're willing to die for what you believe in, or what your commitments are, or what the commitment you've made. Because this is the epitome of the journey that you've dedicated yourself to, in essence. I only say this because this resonates with me. I think they are somewhat synonymous, in a way. These are not statements that are contrived, because when the bell rings, there is no turning back, because the only way is through, right? And there it was. Would you want to? And what I mean by there it was, the time has come. Would you want to? I think the real question would be, could you live with yourself if you didn't? I think a lot of people, we take certain, I suppose the best way to put this is, and what I mean by, I'm just trying to put it in layman terms, what I'm thinking or where my mindset is the fact that if you think of somebody of the old, like medieval times, like say And I have so many things rushing through my head right now. I have so many things rushing through my head right now. But in essence, what I'm saying, let's start with this part. There's the idea of like, you love something so much that you're willing to give your all to it. On the other side of that, you love someone so much because, you know, there is nothing rational or rational about love, right? As they say. So you're in a situation where you love someone so much that you're willing to die. Think about the medieval times where you've given your word. Word is bond. So to protect the king, you're willing to die for it. Now, go back over to something I was watching the other day that somewhat is very relatable to this. And this was somewhat in there. It was Game of Thrones I was watching. But it was one of the more recent sagas to do with the kings of old, before, you know, the Game of Thrones that is more popular. I think it was the House of Dragons, and pretty much there was a twin in there, two twins that ended up killing each other because they were on different sides, and this silly general gave this order for the other twin to go and act or disguise himself as the other twin from the opposite side, just so he can kill one of the leaders on the other side. Because, you know, that's an easy and quick way to end the war. But we all know there's nothing so simple. It's never that simple in the book. So ultimately what you've done is pretty much send this guy to his grave. But that's neither here nor there. The reason why I mentioned this was more the repercussion of the action and what took place after everything was realized, because this twin that was instructed to kill this queen was actually stopped by his own brother. But I think what was relevant with this was the fact that he not only stopped his brother from killing his queen that he was sworn to protect. Once his brother died, he fell on his sword, and he ultimately killed himself because of the dishonor that came with his brother trying to kill somebody he was sworn to protect. And I just, you know, that just, it sort of blew me away. Not necessarily that nobody's capable of that, but because just the, I suppose for me, it's the level of rarity of it, and to be the level of conviction it takes, and the mindset to live like that is out of this world to a degree, because just to the level of rarity that it is. And it's somewhat of a mind-blowing thing for me, because you don't meet people like that, you know, so I just thought I'd share that. Yeah. I'm merely using this whole situation to break down the whole thought process of commitment, in essence. When it comes to someone as myself, there is something to be said for the school of old and everything that comes with it. Like this person, this individual that I just spoke about. Fair enough, it's from Game of Thrones, but you know, there are people like that that exist in this world, and They hold, I mean, you know, I'm sure everybody's heard this saying, word is bond. You know, it did originate from something real. There is no smoke without fire, as we say. I would argue in this day and age, it is perhaps somewhat a medieval situation to you know, for something like that to take place. And the reason why I say medieval is because I think, as I mentioned, it's the rarity of it. Because, and not only that, the mindset, I think a lot of people, or this type of people who succumb to such a culture, is somewhat antiquated or viewed as such. I would say most people probably don't even think they exist anymore, you know, those type of people. Or people with such concrete values. Even if so, it's of no consequence to live in this way. If they did in fact exist, there are no rewards, there are no profits, there are no profit. But, you know, let's go back to how I started. You know, this is not only a culture, this is who you are. So I suppose to be like this is a matter of being, isn't it? And to not do so or be so to speak, it's almost somewhat of a betrayal of self. Now that's some deep stuff, because so much so that I can't imagine many people that can somewhat succumb to values to that degree that they would take their life, even if it's simply because, you know what, a matter of being dishonored, you know, man, it's ill to me. But yes, and yes, there are no rewards, there are no consequences to being like that in these days. Perhaps that's why it's such a somewhat antiquated and to a degree an extinct way of thinking. Why? Because values are somewhat, well, those type of values, somewhat dormant factor in society. To an extent, it's rare, or little to no existence anymore. You know, to die on your sword, I guess. It's just, yeah. So yeah, I've just been playing with this idea in my head. Even so, they most likely don't live long, because they would probably end up dying on their swords sooner than later. The other thing that comes to mind, you know, the good die young, and a few other things, but I think you get the point. Just rambling in a sense, but I am the Mad Poet, and you are free to the Mad Poet podcast, so here we are. But what I was saying, questions. When you find a path, perhaps a craft or something worth committing to, perhaps something potentially greater than yourself, are you willing to make the sacrifice, adhere to the necessary rites of passage to make it happen for yourself? I mean, for me personally, or the way I see it, that is the question, isn't it? That is the question. You know, are you willing to make a sacrifice? You know? Yeah. Thanks for listening and bearing with me on this one. It was a mouthful, or a brainful in a sense. But you know me, I'll be thinking sometimes. I'll sitting down and just contemplating these thoughts. So I just really wanted to sit down and share something, you know. But as always, thanks for everyone for the support, and of course, Poetry Vent, Ramblings of a Mad Poet, out now. My most recent, it's been out just over a month now. My most recent publishing, and it has been great. The book launch went well, and man, you know, I'm still on a high. Just the fact that I've shared something new with people that follow me, people that will support me, read what I have. And so, you know, it makes me feel good. It's a positive thing. And as always, do my best to give back my own way. You know, hopefully people can relate to what I have to give, and they can appreciate my form of expression and how I do things. And that's why I appreciate, you know, podcasting, because a lot of the things I speak about on here is simply me. It's a matter of conversion or converting. So I will convert some of these thoughts that I would ponder to create poetry on a daily basis, and I would just turn it into a conversation, or turn it into, well, conversation if I have a guest, but a monologue by myself. But you know, these are my thought process in essence. Sometimes it's you know, it varies up and down, but essentially what I try my best to do is give food for thought, you know. So thanks everyone for listening, and I appreciate you for taking time to listen to what I have to say. This is the Mad Poet Podcast. Thank you and good day. Till next time, take care.
Mind over matter, overcompensating, overstatements, crookedness relating, the soul's churn in return, mental overstimulation, one word, riveting, it tells my pilot. Streams that are promised to make seeking less